everyone. I'm Mariam, Crichton, and my talk today is going to be very simple. It's just about me, what 2 digital projects I'm working on at the moment, where I come from, and how I got there. Because I haven't gone down an exactly direct route to my career path, and I also have made very random decisions in my life of what I'm going to do and when. I'm also going to share with you some, they're not really tips, they're more like just things I want to get off my chest because I've seen done so badly in the past, and I think they're really important. I'm kind of addicted to going into tech startups and growing them and putting scalable processes in place ready for the next stage of growth where they double. So I'm kind of a serial one of those types of people that just kind of goes in, does it, and then kind of leaves. Because I just love I shouldn't really say that, but it's been videoed. But that's kind of what I do. You can see it in my CV. And then I'm going to talk about what am I most curious about? What do I want to explore further? And what do I want to get into in the future in a big way, really? And don't know where to begin. So if anybody shares my curiosity, please get in contact. Okay. So, I work in the field of international development. I don't know if anybody knows what that means at all. I work for a company called Everyone Mobile. We are a startup growing company based predominantly in Brighton and Cape Town. I visited our beautiful Cape Town office in January. Cape Town is such a beautiful city. We also have an office we have satellite offices all around Africa. Most of our projects are in sub-Saharan Africa, but we're increasingly working on more global projects in emerging markets. We've got offices in Nairobi, Abuja. We're recruiting in Abuja if anybody wants to live and work in Abuja. And what do we do? We work on digital solutions for social impact. So we are fundamentally a tech company, but we work in social impact. We work on types of projects that are social behaviour change communication. We work on big international development projects, and we're the digital partner that produces whatever tech is needed for these projects. We work on projects such as, I work in a project, we work in health, mobile health. I work on a project helping the Rwandan government meet their malnutrition targets for women and children under 5. We work on financial inclusion, so getting people to use mobile banking for the very first time. We work on digital literacy, financial literacy, livelihoods. My favourite subject, if everybody here knows me, is gender justice. We work on gender justice projects. I worked on a huge Nigerian project where we were there to change the social norms, to end violence against women, and empower girls to become decision makers and leaders in a challenging environment where these were not the social norm. So what do we do with tech? You know, lots of things goes on in the field. You've got classes, you've got events, political advocacy, all sorts in the real world. And in the digital world, the typical thing we do is we have our own sort of content management system, and we create digital communities. So we create websites, basically, but what's different working in emerging markets is not everybody has like a computer, a laptop, a smartphone. In fact, hardly anybody does. Everybody's got those old brick phones. You saw a photo of one of them in the previous slides. Those old, they're a brick phone, and some of these old brick phones actually have internet connection, and most people have these types of phones. So we mass communicate digitally through these old phones. So our sites are responsive to, there's always like the normal version where you can go to like desktop, smartphone, but there's always a switch to light where we strip off images, videos, and we specialise in low connectivity and data areas, so we can reach people in places like Tanzania, Nigeria, Rwanda. So that's the kind of tech we do, and what do I do? In this company, I'm head of project management, and that's quite challenging because we have projects all around the world and global teams all around the world. We've got a program design team, a content communities team, developers, designers. I can't remember how many cross-functional teams we have. We have so many cross-functions, so managing all of them together with the on-the-ground integration we do is quite a role. So, I mean, I've worked in lots of geeky backgrounds, doing lots of geeky things before, and also worked on lots of producing luxury products for people who like luxury. But one day, I just thought, you know what, if you're not helping people, there's just no point to anything. For me, personally, I just felt like every day I wasn't helping people, I was just wasting my time. So this photograph, I was just basically having lunch, and that was... I did get to go to Africa. I've been to Nigeria, Tanzania, Rwanda twice in the last year. And I actually went to Europe this year. I went to Barcelona for the World Mobile Congress. Don't know if anybody else went. 100,000 people in suits. Mainly grey, mainly black. And there I was working with, in Tanzania, I worked on a global project in 14 countries where we produced text messages, 1,000 text messages and voice recordings for phones that don't have mobile connection. And it's all to do with pregnancy, maternal health, nutrition for babies. And that was the NGO I worked with who produced a lot of the messages. So that's what I do to get paid full time. And I also work on another project for a fantastic CEO called Gillian. This is a startup company in London. They launched an iPhone and an Android app. It is launched in London, but you can actually use it anywhere in the world. They're just kind of starting up with London. What do they do? I'm on the advisory board and a mentor to Gillian, and it's so much fun. It's so much fun when you've got a CEO. She's a really young Canadian lady, and working with her whole team is just, I just feel like I'm working with friends. I've never really worked with, I actually haven't worked with it, apart from myself being a CEO previously, I've never worked with another female CEO or female CEO, and it really just feels like I'm working with friends all the time. What does Safe in the City do? I think it's really, really cool. If you happen to be in London, you can download the app and use it. It does two kind of things. It's all about sexual street harassment and street harassment in general. You know, when you're walking down, it doesn't really happen in Brighton, actually. I don't think it really happens in Brighton. I don't know if I'm just getting old now. I've lived in Brighton 10 years. But in London, it happens all the time. You probably know what it's like in London. You're walking down the road and people catcall, they might say all sorts of awful things, that might indecently expose themselves. So, you know, do sort of unwanted behaviour that makes you feel unsafe. And what's really sad is that, you know, looking at all the demographics, most people who experience this are girls who are 13, 14 and 15. And this is the social norm. And do you know what? It was the social norm when I was a girl growing up in London at the age of 13, 14 and 15. I can see a lot of people nodding their heads. And people don't really talk about these things. And so what you can do on this app is it's really, I think, cathartic to report it. And a lot of these things are not crime. It's not crime to really indecently expose yourself to people or grope people, actually. So what it does is, I think it will it's showing that this is a social norm and it's not acceptable and people need to do something about it. But I think often these little things happen to us. You're walking down the road and someone says something, you know, gross and you feel a bit weird, but you think, oh, I should just put up with it and not even tell my best friend because, you know, it's normal. Well, actually, on the app, you can stick a pin on the map and it's got a filter of all these different types of gross things that can happen to you. And it's very cathartic, but it also shows everybody else of what's going on in that area, because quite often it's a repeat offender, like working in the back of a kitchen in Soho, that's doing it. So you've got this measle map appearing in London of all incidents that people are reporting. But as well as just reporting, and it's actually a route finder. So typically when you put where you want to go into Google Maps, it will show you the route of how to get there. But on this map, it won't just show you what's the quickest way to get there, it'll show you what's the safest way to get there, because they're taking daily data from the Metropolitan Police of crime hotspots. So you can see the crime hotspot intersections for that day, because it actually changes daily. It's really interesting. I mean, some people, you might be like walking down Primrose Hill thinking, la-di-da-da, so it's so safe here, it's wonderful, nothing's going to happen to me. But actually, there might be this one little roundabout where 12 motorcycle thefts of smartphones are happening every day, because it's like the perfect getaway route for someone to just snatch a handbag and run away. So it is really interesting, and it's been really interesting working with Jill and her team and the Metropolitan Police on this. And it's kind of like a really fun but really easy thing for me to do, because I just so happened to have been a girl who grew up in London, who also experienced, sexual street harassment from a very young age. I happen to work for lots of startups, so it's very easy for me to advise on startups, because I've seen a lot of great startups and not so great startups. I happen to come from a mapping background. I happen to have worked in app development. I happen to come from an ethnic minority, which means I can have that lens of diversity inclusion into things like their media. So it doesn't really ever feel like I'm working, I just feel like just kind of send a few messages and slacks from my bed, really, before I'm going to bed, and that's it, really. And it's a lot of fun, and it's a lot of fun going to London, too. So that's what I do when I'm not working full-time for Everyone Mobile. So where did I come from? How did it all begin? How did I get to working in international development and having fun with Safe in the City? The journey. I actually come from a hard science background. I studied maths, physics, chemistry, completely spontaneously. I literally was queuing up to file in studying maths, English, history, because the English and history teachers really wanted me to study it, and I was encouraged by the school to study it. But I read the English syllabus, and I had read all the books I'm going to read for English A-level. I thought there's no way I'm going to be reading books for 2 years. So I completely randomly changed my mind to do maths, physics, and chemistry. And then I had no idea what I was going to study for a degree, none. So I thought I'd just get the most comprehensive-looking prospectus, which was UCL, I thought. And I just went from A, and I thought I'd just go from A to Z. But when I hit G, I hit a master's degree in geophysics and geology, a hard science subject. Why did I pick that? It's because I have a sense of, I love to go on adventures and I love to travel. And if you study geology and geophysics, you got to travel. You got to go on field trips all over the place, which I thought were going to be like holidays. But they were actually really hard work. Sometimes we wouldn't eat till 10 o'clock at night. I'd have to camp for 10 days, share a 3-man tent with 4 smelly boys at the top of the Alps, raining for 10 days. But it was good. That's where I started to get introduced to digital, because digital wasn't fashionable back then. I'm a lot older than I look. So I started doing a bit of programming. You have to as part of geophysics. And then I got back to, I studied at University of Liverpool. And then I came back to London. Well, that's my sister in the picture in London. I'm actually the eldest of 5. I got back to London, and honestly, for 4 years, it had never occurred to me until I got home that there were no earthquakes in London, there were no volcanoes in London, there was no gold, minerals, or gas to mine in London. So what was I going to do? Such a clever girl, and hadn't occurred to me. So I ended up working in the closest thing I can kind of get to it, which was mapping, digital mapping, because in geology you have to learn to map. And I had a career for about 14 years in geographical information systems and mapping. I don't know if anybody knows what GIS is here. Oh, a few people. And in my time, I've worked for lots of companies, doing lots of roles. I co-founded and started up a company as CEO and grew it to 20. I was head of product. I've been COO. I've had I've always been in management in typically small startup companies. From myself, from 0 to 20, or I like to go in at 20 now when they've sort of got, they've got going a bit, and then, roughly about 24 people, it starts to double in size in the next 6 months, and then double again. So that was my career. I actually started my first GIS job was mapping drawings of contaminated land in the British Library in London, but it was actually for a Brighton company who was still going really strong, Groundshaw. Oh my God, we've got some Groundshaw. So I worked for Groundshaw in 2002 or 2002, yeah, 2003, long time ago. So, what I would say is the glass ceiling does exist, and sometimes when you bump your head hard, you've just got to take some time out. And I took 2 years out after being the CEO of Find Maps to spend some time with my daughter and just take a break. I spent about 11 months kind of recovering from giving birth. And then I spent about a year traveling in India, China, and Myanmar, basically backpacking. It's a great time to go traveling with a kid because from 1 to 2, they're still in nappies. You don't have to worry about toilets. You can put them in a backpack and a sling. You don't have to worry about airfares under 2. You're still breastfeeding, so you don't have to worry about all that stuff. They just kind of are at the back, and you just take them. And that's my daughter Maya. By 2, I wouldn't recommend it because they start to have a voice of their own and tell you what to do. So that's Maya. She's 7 now. That was us. I lived in the Himalayas for 3 months in a part of that 1 year stretch I went travelling. That is Leh, which is 3,000 metres high in India by the Tibetan-Chinese Kashmir border, where I did some voluntary work. It was a lot of fun, just trekking up lots of temples. I took time out. So these are sort of my get off my chest tips. A lot of them are to do with soft skills and leadership and communication, because in digital, typically we're developers, we've been behind a screen coding, we are designers, we design all day, where I spent most of my academic years looking down a microscope, but nobody really teaches us communication or leadership. And quite often, founders of tech startups and digital startups are technical professions who've gone on to grow companies, but they haven't actually learned the communication skills or the leadership skills, and they have to kind of learn it along the way. So in our sector, I don't think we're great always with leadership and communication. So it's something I want to bring up today. So internal communications, communication structures and processes before scale up. There's nothing worse than having too many meetings, not enough meetings. Just put slack in. Know when to communicate. Tell people what's going on. Because basically, when a company grows, you can go from 20 and whatever you've got there is fine. When you go to like 40 or 50, it's a disaster and it's really hard to go backwards. When people are growing so quickly, leaders forget to tell people that they've hired somebody who's about to sit next to them, and it really unsettles people. And people feel really scared, actually, with all this change in software and people and growing. And so I'd say communicate, talk to people, tell everybody what's going on about everything, the software, the products, services, appropriately, and be transparent as possible. And then everybody will come on the journey with you. Otherwise, you see companies get up to about 24, and then suddenly they grow, and there's a whole batch of those brilliant startup people who leave. I'd say understand people's strengths and weaknesses. So when you're working with people, it's really important to understand who you're working with, really personally, get to know them personally, know what they're good at, know what they're bad at, and put them in roles that they're good at. You can take a developer, for example. You can get a developer that's great with consultancy work, where there's crazy queries coming in all day, hot fixes, dealing with people because they're in a consultancy type of developer. Or you get developers who are more product developers who don't want anybody talking to them. They're just on their genius long-term development thing and don't want to talk to people. Find out what people like and, put them in roles that are appropriate to their strengths and weaknesses. Seek mentors and advisors. The organisation, we all know that. I'm not saying seek an advisor. I'm not saying seek a mentor. I'm saying seek half a dozen. Gillian does this so well, the CEO of Safe in the City. Get half a dozen advisors, get half a dozen mentors. Get one for everything. Get one for your private equity and growing your company. Get one for your product and the user base. Get one for your ops and how you're going to grow your company. Get one for everything. And of course, we all know it all and we can do it all, but it is so much easier and so much more fun and so much more creative when you get lots of people helping you. And a lot of people, particularly, I know this is a case in Brighton, there's a lot of people who think they know it all and don't want to ask for help. But just be humble and find people who don't make you feel like they're patronising you and they know it all and are sort of preaching to you. Just find people that feel like friends. Okay, takeaways for today are you can take a career break. If I've ever taken a break, I travelled for 2 years in 2003. Whenever I've come back so much more innovative and creative and refreshed. Take a career break, travel, have a child, look after a partner, look after your parents, do whatever you want to do. You can do it. And I'm saying it's hard in digital because when you come back, everything changes. Software, processes, new technology. It's one of the hardest sectors to take a break and come back, and it does take a while. It might take you a year to recover, but I recommend it. Just do it. I'd also say, I can see from everyone in this room, you're all not the normal people you would see in digital. You all look a bit different. You probably all stand out in your teams and companies. I would say that you can find digital projects with your direct personal experiences in life that are valuable contributions to digital solutions. Like for me in Safe in the City, it was just like, it's easy, like I naturally contribute because I have all the skills organically throughout my journey. And I'd say employ superior communication techniques at rapid startup stages of companies. So what is Mariam most curious about? What am I most passionate about and want to explore next? Leadership and diversity in leadership. And I don't mean, right, we've got a group here, we don't have any women, we need to tick the woman in the room box. Oh, there's nobody of an ethnic minority, we need to tick an ethnic minority box. I mean, whatever you are governing, whatever you are leading, have the people that you are governing and leading represented, not in middle management, but right at the top, at the board, in senior leadership positions. If you're governing a youth football club, have a young person who plays football in the senior exec team. If you happen to be governing a country like the United Kingdom, which happens to be 51% population is female, have women at the top governing the company, because different perspectives produce the best solutions. That's all I'm going to talk about today. If you share that passion of mine, please get in touch. Thank you.